Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants here, and welcome to episode 79 of Secret Sauce, the restaurant marketing podcast, restaurant marketing lessons from Asia.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing on with our soiree. We spoke mainly about Singapore last time. We're going to be talking about some of the things that we saw throughout Asia, some really interesting stories. Probably the big one for me is the sadness that the $5 izakaya place, Tokyo $5 izakaya, closed. Well, I think it's closed. So one thing on that, it's their Google My Business account, which was never closed, which is now saying that they're permanently closed. I don't know. They don't have a web presence, so it's very hard to get their contact details. You can still book there in some of the booking platforms. Now, whether they just haven't turned them off or not, who knows? But you must own your Google My Business account. This is absolutely fundamental because it's so easy for your competitors to go in and say, nah, permanently closed. And that's it, all over Red Rover. You're wondering why. And we've seen this. We've seen this with people who come to us and say, you know, business has really fallen off a cliff in the last 2 months. And you Google them and you go, so are you still open? Yes. Are you thinking of closing? Well, we're going to have to do something very soon. It's like, because it actually says on Google, permanently closed. So I'm going to try and find out about it because it was a great restaurant, great food, great value, great experience, but probably the best restaurant that no one had ever heard of, which is really quite sad. So today we're going to talk about some of the restaurants and some of the experiences, some of the restaurants that we went to, and more importantly, some of the restaurants that we didn't go to. So we are the typical Western tourist looking for an authentic insert cuisine here, whether it be Malaysian, Vietnamese, Thai, lots of places that we wanted to go to, some of the places that we struggled with, and we're going to talk about why we struggled and what they could have done to get us into the restaurant. First off, before we start with that, one of the places that we did see and didn't go into was Jamie's Italian. Now, why didn't we go in there? Oh, look, I'm a big fan of Jamie Oliver. I think he does some cracking stuff. He is fighting the big battle, and I love the work that he is doing. There are so many multinationals now who are pushing all sorts of just hideous food. Well, no, it's not even food, hideous chemicals into the diet. I was reading a little earlier this week a study that was saying that the more processed food that you eat, the more likely you are to get a whole range of cancers. That's not good. The obesity epidemic, and we were having multiple conversations about this, just how in school now you've got so many more kids who are overweight. And this is the heartland that Jamie's working on. And I think he deserves a lot of respect and a lot of adulation for the hard work that he's putting in there, trying to fight back, these crazy energy drinks, these processed foods, these high fructose corn syrup type things. Just really bad for everyone. So Jamie's Italian, I didn't go in there. Why? Well, because I have the impression that Jamie's Italian is not a great place to eat in. I love the way that he cooks. He's talking about that really simple kind of food with natural ingredients. That's fantastic. And he's got a great brand around that. But my impression is that Jamie's Italian is off-brand. I haven't done a lot of research into it. I hadn't done a lot of research into it up until now, and we'll go into why if you haven't heard. And I'm much keener to go into someone's local restaurant, and get a more authentic kind of cuisine. Now, so I started doing a little bit of research for this podcast, and it wasn't the information that I was looking for. It was actually a little bit more recent than that. And that was that someone had taken photos of one of the Jamie's Italian restaurants in Sydney, and they're using packet gnocchi. Now, this is a little bit confusing. Technically, gnocchi's not pasta. Okay, who knew? Well, you probably all knew that. I didn't. I'm just a guy who likes going out to a restaurant. I'm not a food lawyer, though. I thought gnocchi was a type of pasta. It says on the menu, we make fresh pasta right here every day with love. So they took a photo of them using packaged gnocchi. Now, Jamie's Italian said, yes, it's packaged gnocchi. It's not pasta and it's authentic. It's sourced from an Australian distributor from Italy or something like that. The customer's asking the question, why am I going out? Why am I paying all this money for something that I could have cooked at home? Now, why was I Googling Jamie's Italian in the first place? Well, it's come out that they are $126 million in debt. He's been forced to close some of his restaurants and he's trying to negotiate leases, some others. So you just look at it, and I've got a photo there of one of them. The fit out looks really, really expensive. Locations are probably all primo, so he's probably paying an absolute fortune for the leases. Now, Jamie's been talking about how the market has changed post-Brexit and it's made it a lot more difficult. But a lot of people have been pointing to bad reviews, stories about dysfunctional workplaces, lots of bad customer reviews. To me, it's always seemed a little bit expensive and a little bit... I'm not a super fan of high-end Italian food, I've got to say. It's not my favouriteest of cuisines, although some of the best meals I've had have been in Italian restaurants. The reviews, I think, may or may not be a significant issue. The story about dysfunctional workplaces, this, at its heart, I think, comes to the question, how do you scale your business? And I think... Now, so I'm not sure how much Jamie Oliver's actually got to do with Jamie's Italian. He could have just licensed the name and have nothing to do with it, or he could be a large shareholder of it who's fundamentally tied to it. I don't think that that's the case, because I think they were saying that the money that owed isn't partially owned by Jamie Oliver. But it's going to probably be somewhere in between. You know, he's probably got some involvement with it. This is the fundamental question, particularly when you're trying to build a brand across countries. So you've got significant cultural issues as you try and build a workforce that's going to scale multiple countries. That makes it so hard. And this is one of the things that we're going to be doing some work on this year, is how do you actually grow that restaurant? Because a lot of people are kind of profitable for one restaurant, and they think, you know what, if I had two restaurants that were kind of profitable, then I start to get those economies of scale. You know, you've only got one owner who needs to be paid. You can do marketing. You can have one person doing marketing across both of them. You start to get, maybe you can get some price breaks from some of your suppliers because you're going to be ordering twice as much. Things like HR, you're going to be getting better at HR because you're going to be hiring and firing twice as much. So there are definite benefits as you start to scale up, but the risks are huge. And I think this is what we're seeing with Jamie's Italian, is that they've lost that quality control. And I think that there's a fundamental part of quality control when it comes to it. And quality in HR, quality in marketing, quality in sourcing food, quality in prep, quality in the kitchen, quality in customer service. It's a massively big quality control game. And this is why a lot of single restaurant owners work so many hours, because they're there and they can ensure the quality is where it needs to be for them to be successful. But if you're relying on that, then you really do make a really big rod for your own back, because of the fact that you have to be there all the time, and that makes it really hard. So it'll be interesting to see how Jamie's Italian goes. They are closing some of the restaurants, renegotiating with some of the others. There's a lot of people employed with it. A lot of people have got their jobs on the line. So hopefully they can sort of turn that ship around. Now, the next restaurant I want to talk to, this is one in Singapore. And this was probably my favourite restaurant, although I do have a few regrets about going there. And it's not about, when you have a regret of going for the restaurant, it's either about the price or about the food or the experience. There's usually something off. The day that we went there, the morning, I woke up with a really bad headache. I thought I was having a stroke. It was a really, really bad headache. So I thought, there's only one way to cure this. I'll go for a run, as you do. That didn't go down so well, and I started to get a really bad fever just before we went there. I didn't know it at this stage, but I was brewing, I think it was sinusitis that turned into some sort of horrific pneumonia, because this was only a couple of days before we got on the cruise ship. In the next podcast, we're going to talk about what you can learn from cruise ships in the way that you market your restaurant, because their problem's a little bit different to yours. Some of the things that they do, eminently usable in any restaurant. I actually spent 5 days on the cruise ship coughing up blood with a left lower lobe pneumonia. Tragically, I spent more on my medical bill than I did on alcohol. So you know that your cruise has got significant issues when you look at the bill and you think, oh my God, that's really sad. I was quite looking forward to this restaurant. So Lagna Barefoot Dining in Little India. Was really looking forward to it. By the time I got there, I wasn't really in the mood to be enjoying it. But we'll talk about it anyway, because the first thing I do when I go back to Singapore, I don't know when that's going to be, but when I go back, I'm going to go back here because it was completely epic. I just wasn't in the mood to fully enjoy the epicness of this Indian restaurant. Now, the owner there, I think it's Kesavan, the owner, he met us when we got there, and he said, I said, table for 4, and he said, yep, would you like to sit here? And I said, are we able to sit upstairs? And he said, for barefoot dining. And this is the first thing that was really cool about Lagna. So they've got barefoot dining, but it's upstairs and you have to ask for it. So this is one of those experiences. And it was like the whole sort of thing changed. We looked like just tourists who were walking in and, here for a curry. He knew that we had done our research because I said, I want to sit upstairs. Like, I obviously knew something about the restaurant. And he was really excited about that. Oh, yes. Okay, so, yeah, barefoot dining? Yep. And, so this is one of those things. Everyone wants to be in on the secret. And it's very similar to, the speakeasies that they have in the United States. So it'll be some sort of whiskey bar maybe, and there'll be a door that's sort of hidden away, or it'll be a big imposing door and you have to knock on the door and a little grill opens up and you have to speak the password to get in. And I think there's one in Chicago that's got a hidden bar that's in a hidden bar that's in a hidden bar. So the hidden bar has got like about 40 or 50 seats. Then you go through a phone box or something into a bar that's got about 20 seats. And then there's a secret bar inside that with just 8 seats. So it's about getting on you want to know something that other people don't know. This is part of the experience. Remember, you want to get away from selling food because food is ubiquitous. You want to sell that experience. So immediately he said, yep, take you. And when you looked at you knew that something was going on because the stairs that lead up, they all had, shoes and socks on them. So we take our shoes and socks off and we head up and we're sitting on the floor ready to eat our food. That was the first thing that was really cool about it. And I think the easiest thing that you can do to make people feel like members of a secret special club is have secret off-menu items. So, and there's a lot of places that do it. Burger places will do it. Now, you can come up with a range of secret items and you could advertise them all through different mediums. So you could have a Instagram-only secret menu item. And the thing I like about this is this gives you a really good indication of where your traffic's coming from. If you only have a certain type of burger or a certain type of curry or a certain type of whatever the meal, a certain type of dessert maybe, and you advertise it on Instagram and people are asking for it, then you know your Instagram marketing is working. If it's on Facebook and it's only on Facebook, then you know your Facebook marketing is working. It might be your email marketing. You send it out to all of the people in your email database. If they're coming in and they're asking for that item, then you know that they have read your email. So not only is it, you're actually doing the transaction, you're selling the food, you're creating interest out of it, but it's secret. So people are going to look at you, this guy's ordering something that's not on the menu. They're going to look confused. You're the insider. And that's what people want. So we're off to a good start with that. And it was quite nice upstairs. Now, the second thing that was really good about it was the menu. He's got one of those menus that you can see quite a bit of effort has been put into it. Firstly, up the top it says, good needs time, excellence needs patience. Please be patient with us. And I'm quite comfortable with that. The food did take a little while to come out. That was fine, apart from the fact that I felt like I was dying. I thought I might have had Ebola or something. We were sitting back having a beer, the kids were having a Coke, and we were just talking. It was a nice, holiday type thing. It's got obsessive cooking disorder. It's got the kind of things that you want to spend a bit of time actually reading through the menu. There's other things that are really important about it. Child friendly. They've got items that are marked as being child friendly. So this de-risks the transaction if you're thinking about bringing a family. So this is someone who actually has a child friendly Indian restaurant. The other thing that's really important about this is that the way that they handled heat. So this is one of the big bugbears with a lot of people with Indian food. I can't eat Indian food. So, and that's a big issue in our family because I like it hot, 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 and I'm the only one. So sad times. It was very clear which items were hot, which items weren't hot. And when you asked for it to be hot, you could specify how hot. So, and because of the fact that I thought I had Ebola and was dying, I didn't want to go completely insane. So I decided for a 3, which I thought, it's an Indian restaurant renowned for the heat of their food. So how renowned are they? They actually have, sort of challenge nights where you can come along and they'll serve up some food that's really hot. And there's sort of like a qualifying round where you've got to eat, I think it's a 6. And if you can eat the 6, then you can try the 7. And I think they're done on a full moon. There was something about it. But he has special events there for that, so once again, creating that experience, creating that challenge. Are you able to handle that hot food? Now, surprisingly, I don't think he had a chicken vindaloo. I'm just having a look at the photo of the menu that I took. I think I may have had the chicken curry, which is described as the MasterChef's evil plan, global domination through curry. So, yes, we had that. Now, the other thing that I think was really good about this was the dessert description. This is the real part of the tragedy. I was too sick to have dessert. Bailey's Gulab Jamnam. Now, I love Gulab Jamnam. A Bailey's Gulab Jamnam, that just sounds completely epic. So a lot of thoughts gone through that. There's also, below that was Dragon Slayer chocolates, a trilogy, Sinus Plumber, which is mild, Junkie High, hot, and Burns Twice, very hot. I really wanted to have the Bailey's Gulab Jamnam, but I was in no fit state to order that. So we had a couple more kingfishers. The food came out. It was really nice. Lots of taste, really nice. And at the end of it, we were just about to head off because I wanted to die pretty much. And K7 comes up and he goes, "Oh, how did you go?" And I said, "Yeah, it was really nice." He goes, "How hot was the food?" I said, "Oh, it was okay. It wasn't that hot." And he goes, "You had a 3." And I've gone, "Yeah, didn't want to risk it. I didn't know how hot a 3 was going to be." And he goes, "Oh, you've got to try something hotter. You got to try it." And we talked about it, and I think he brought up a 5, or I can't remember. I wasn't feeling too good, but he insisted. You got to try it. So he brought up some 5 for me to try. And finally, I found somewhere it was like, you know what? So I wasn't at my limit, but it was like, you know what? This curry needs a bit of respect. Let's not go berserk with this curry. And I'm just so disappointed that I wasn't better to be able to fully appreciate it. And yeah, so we talked a bit more about curries and the restaurant. Super friendly guy, so he's the chef, but does a crushingly good job front of house. Gave me a business card at the end that I could invite friends back with a discount to come back. So all of the things that you would kind of think to do. His website obviously needs a little bit of work, but amazing food, really good story, creates a really good experience, and that will be the first place I will go back to the next time I go to Singapore, and I'm planning on going back to Singapore because it's epic. This was the epic food in Singapore for so many reasons. It was, almost the perfect Indian restaurant. So I'm really keen to try some of the super hot stuff next time when I'm not feeling quite so poorly. A restaurant where a lot of thought's gone into it. He's got an A-frame, or he's got a sign on the road that sort of mentions it, and it goes through and it says all of the kind of things that's good about Lugner, awards that they've won, cold Indian beer. He tells you how cold it is, 0 to 3 degrees Celsius, and it's 50 steps away. So it's barefoot dining, and there's actual steps on the pavement leading there. And he says 50 steps away with the footprints in there. Really cool restaurant, does an amazing job. Have a think about off-menu specials. Secret menu items. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Now, the next thing to talk about is a cow dung tart. Wow. I think this was in Malaysia. There was a place that sold cow dung tarts, and I'll put a photo of it up in the show notes. But it kind of looks like a dollop of cow dung and with some sort of sweet filling in there. I thought that this was really innovative. I can't help but wonder if they couldn't have come up with a better way of describing it. Now, bearing in mind, of course, that this was in Malaysia, and I don't know what the cultural significance of cow dung is. From Western eyes, though, cow dung, probably not the kind of thing that I'm thinking about, I can't get enough cow dung in my diet. It looks like a really, and we didn't try one, so I was still sick at the time, so and it wasn't feeling overly adventurous. They do look quite nice, like a light pastry around them, eminently edible, apart from the fact that it's wrapped around cow dung. And I can't help but think if everyone had stopped and just thought for a little bit more about what it is that they were trying to do there, we probably could have come up with a better way of packaging that up. So just because it's new, just because it's innovative, doesn't mean that it's a great idea. And look, I don't know how successful these guys are. They might be killing it. The cow dung might be the McDonald's of the 21st century. Somehow I'm not too sure about that though. Now, compare and contrast that with Beard Puppers. So these guys do fresh and natural cream puffs. It's a brand out of Japan, Osaka, Japan. And they kind of like have a beignet type meal with a donut type topping, which you can then choose to put a sauce into. So they've got these kind of like a big sort of syringe that they put this topping into. Now, we were walking along and I looked at it and kept on walking. Then I stopped and walked back and I thought, you know what? I'm going to try one of these. And these were really, really good. I think it's interesting the number of donut places that make very heavy donuts when they could be making these light and fluffy things. It was like biting into a cloud. It reminded me of beignets from Chicago that I've had. And a pretty easy dish to prepare and super tasty. And I reckon it'd be fairly cheap as well. I don't think the ingredients would be that expensive. So probably a high margin item. This would be the perfect dessert type thing. The other thing that's really important about this, Instagram's ridiculously well. You can look at it, it just oozes out yummy goodness. And these are the kind of things that really help you to get that story across about what it is that you're trying to do. Now, the next one, so all of these places, we visited quite a few countries because we were on a cruise ship at the time. So we're going to talk about the cruise ship separately. So we're on the Sapphire Princess and it was, every couple of days it was depositing us in a new country for the day. One of the stops was Ho Chi Minh City, which was really exciting because we've got a customer in Ho Chi Minh City. So I went out to see Eva at Boulevard Grill and Bar. There was a couple of interesting things here. So not your typical Vietnamese food, that's fine. I really just wanted to meet Eva and have a chat with her about what the market was like in Ho Chi Minh City because it was quite exciting for us to have a customer in Vietnam given the fact that we don't speak Vietnamese. Now, she's got a really interesting restaurant. The food there was extremely high quality, really nice. We got the tour around the place. She was very gracious to host us. It was not only was it December 24th, it was also her son's birthday. So we lobbed in and we had a really good, probably about an hour and a half together. Food was amazing. It was the first time I'd had a Vietnamese coffee with sweetened condensed milk. That was epic because I love my coffee and I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. This was the marriage made in heaven for me. And it makes me really sad because I'll need to start looking in Melbourne to find somewhere that can do one just like it. Food was great, really good. Now, and her business model is a little bit different to a lot of others. So she's actually building the business up and giving back a portion of the profits to needy charities as they have this Dining for Giving program. These are the kind of things that can really help differentiate your business in a crowded marketplace. It gives something to people, like it creates that experience, that feel-good factor for all of the people who come into the restaurant. Now, for some people, they're going to go along for the food and the food alone. And you know what? Their food is good enough to be able to stand on its own. But there will also be a range of people who will go along because they know that some of the profits are going to go out and help, the city in which they're in. And I think that that's really important. And I think we'll see more and more of this social enterprise type business occurring in the hospitality industry because realistically, I think there's a very tight relationship between food and the ongoing nurturing of people who are in need. And this is what Eva's trying to achieve with Boulevard Grill. And I think it's really exciting to be working with her on something like that. So great work. And not only has she created a great kitchen that's turning out some great food, and let's face it, how hard is it to do that? It's very difficult and a lot of people struggle with that. Not only has she done that, she's doing something that's really creating a good social impact for the local community. And I think that's really exciting. Now, the next stop was Port Kelang, which we were really excited to try some typical Malaysian food. That was what the goal was here. So we caught an Uber or a grab into Klang, went to a local shopping centre. It had a lot of chains in there which we weren't really interested in. So we walked across the street and to where, all of the local restaurants were. And it was really amazing. So we ended up eating in like a kind of sushi train type place. The bowls or the plates of the sushi food just going around, grabbing them off and eating them. It was epic. The kids loved it. The kids could see the food going around from the outside and they said, this is where we want to eat. And I was like, no, we're in Malaysia. We're going to get some Malaysian food. Now, there was a couple of problems. So the first problem that we encountered was as we were walking out from the shopping centre, I did a quick search on Google. I had a look at the maps and I found a place and I thought, yep, this place looks pretty good. Good reviews. And it's not too far to walk. So we walked across the road. It was down a couple of back alleys. It seemed pretty safe. So I was like, because I'm always worried about safety when you're in a foreign country and, especially when you've got kids tagging along. Look, this looks all right. So we went along. Now, they were closed and not closed for today, closed forever. They'd actually disappeared. So that was the first issue that we had. That was the only restaurant in the area that had a decent web presence. So all of the other places, we were kind of at the mercy of them just relying on us to walk in. The vast majority of them didn't have the menu out the front. So there was some places that they talked about, what kind of food it was. A lot of them were on the first floor, so you had to go upstairs. But there was no menu. So you don't know how expensive it is. You don't know what food there is. There was nothing. You don't know how dingy it is upstairs. We weren't in the most salubrious parts of town. So that was a little bit of a factor. We wanted to go somewhere that, wasn't too dingy. But we really struggled with that. And so we walked around. We couldn't find anything that really met our needs. And I was kind of looking for a place that had a menu, maybe with some pictures of some of the food and a little bit of a description. We weren't the only tourists who were in the area, and it wasn't like an overly touristy area, but it would have been quite easy. They were right next to a major shopping centre that had a lot of tourists in it. And it would have been quite easy to drag a few of those tourists out by using Google Maps with a story that would have resonated for us. And so you've got to remember that as tourists, we're kind of working off our phone and we're looking for certainty. This place looks pretty good. The menu has got some food on it that I want to eat, at least something that I might be able to point towards when we're trying to order. Because I'm not expecting people to speak English, but it would have been nice. And the menu didn't even need to be in English. I've eaten in plenty of places where the menu has just got a series of photos on it, and you go and you order off the menu. You point, I'll have one of those. The menus, the pictures there, the photos there. But yeah, it was very interesting. And a lot of these places, I only help but think that they were relying very strongly on regular locals to come in. So there was all of that money. And particularly in a place like Malaysia, in a lot of Asian countries, where you've got people like the typical American tourist who has got American dollars, which, they buy it. It translates really well. It's quite a strong currency, which means that they're not shy of paying a decent price. It's quite easy to, upsell them to a banquet or, your signature dish that's a little bit more expensive than others and a lot more higher margin. It was really quite sad because we missed out on all of that Malaysian cuisine. We went and look, wasn't really that fussed. The kids loved the Japanese food and we loved it as well. It was nice and easy. The process was quite simple to work out how to pay for it all. It was just sad that we would have probably walked past 12 restaurants in that area and none of the basics for us to go in. And we were looking for a traditional Malaysian meal. What's the kind of lunch that you would have in a Malaysian restaurant? That was what we were looking for. We couldn't get that because no one had de-risked that transaction for us. And it could have been quite easy to do. Even if you wanted that menu translated, you could have put that menu up on Fiverr, or whatever a Malaysian version of that is. There's got to be something out there for someone who would have translated it for $5. You then put that up there. And you have the menu, a bilingual menu. It's in your language, it's in English, or whatever tourism area you're in. It makes people feel a little bit more welcome when they can see it in their language. If not, a menu with photos. Not hard to do, and a lot of Asian countries do that because of the fact that there's so many people who speak so many different languages. And it's not just English that they're trying to paying customers. There's a whole range of languages that people are speaking in a lot of Asian countries, which is why rather than having a bilingual menu, they have the photo menu. It's nice and simple, but it didn't really work out that way, which was a bit sad. So that's about it. There was lots of other places that we ate. These were probably the edited highlights. I think there's a couple of things to think about. Think about the secret menu. Think about the way that the secret menu items, ordering off the menu creates an experience. Think about the experience that you're creating, because Lugner Barefoot Dining, they'd really done a great job of putting together an experience there wrapped around some amazing food. Have a think about the way that the food's prepared. The walk-in. If you're in a tourist area, then you really need to be thinking about the walk-in, what you're doing, who are the people who are walking by your restaurant, and what is it that you're doing to grab them to come in. If you're not in a tourist area, but you've got a lot of walk-by traffic, what are you doing to get that person to come in for the first time? Because they're the ones who are going to be your repeat customers. If they don't come in for the first time, they're never going to be a repeat customer. And far too few people put enough effort into grabbing people when they come by for that first visit. And you think if there was one person there who just had samples of something that was really yummy, they would have captured us. And we would have spent, we would have been happy to spend $60, $80 on lunch. It would have been a really good sale for them. It was pretty quiet. It was a fairly quiet area. Everyone was open for lunch. No one was doing a roaring trade. Would have been easy to capture a nice, decent customer to come in and 2 or 3 courses and a few drinks and a few beers. Would have been quite easy, would have been quite good for them. But no one was really thinking about capturing that walk-in traffic, particularly and so that's the walk-in traffic, and none of these guys, or the only person who'd actually thought about web marketing, had gone out of business, and they were the ones that we went to see because of the fact that they had de-risked the transaction for us. There was a menu there were photos of the place inside. It looked all really good. Sadly, we were too late in getting there because they shut down the business. If a couple of those other restaurants had websites up there, we probably would have gone in there. As it turned out, someone who did think about the walk-in with their amazing sushi train excitement, they were the ones who got our business. And we filled up on beautiful Japanese food. Not what we intended, but it was a great meal anyway. So that's about it. Hopefully you've learned something about it. Hopefully our gallivanting around has given you some insight into how to capture the tourist, because it's interesting when you look at it from the other end and you just wonder, why is it that so many restaurants make it so hard to get people to go in? They actually make it difficult for people to go in and have a meal there. Next, we're going to talk about Princess Cruises and some of the amazing experiences that they put on in a food-related environment. So stay tuned for that one. Apart from that, you have an outstanding day. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.